Welcome to Deeply Well, a soft place to land on your journey. A podcast for those that are curious, creative, and ready to expand in higher consciousness and self-care. This is where we heal. This is where we transcend. Welcome to today's episode. Now, by the time you're hearing this episode, I'm certain that I have already announced my new book, Living in Wisdom, a path to embodying your authentic self, embracing grief, and developing self-mastery. If you are a listener of this podcast, this is the deeper layer of work that I have really been waiting and just so heart-centered in creating to really ascend on this journey, to be able to go deeper, to be able to go higher, to be able to have the practices that will support all the things that you are currently working on in your life. And a lot of it are things that we dive into on this show. So I'm so excited to get this to you. Pre-order. DeviBrown.com, Amazon, anywhere you get books, you can pre-order your copy officially today. I am so proud of this beautiful little baby. This is my life's work, and this is really my heart's offering of some of the deepest wisdom I have been gratefully able to amass and ways to make it tangible so that you can heal your life as you live it in its fullness. So check that out, Living in Wisdom. All right, today's episode is all about the art of tiny joys. I'll never forget when God sent me that concept in 2020. I was laying on the grass. We were in the pandemic. I was so confused. I had a 2-year-old child. My life was changing really fast and it felt really hard. I had lost someone that I loved dearly. A friend of mine left the earth and I was grieving that. There was so much chaos and upheaval in the world, and I laid down and I just let tears fall down my face. And I remember the sun was so hot and bright that day and my eyes were closed. I was listening to a song and I could feel the warmth and the orange of the sun through my eyelids while they were closed. And it reminded me of this moment when I was a little girl and I used to do that at recess. I would go find a quiet corner all by myself and I would lay down and I would just feel the sun on my face and it fueled me. And I remember God's voice spoke so loud to me and they said, "Seek the tiny joys. Seek the tiny joys. Seek the tiny joys." It was a profound moment for me that set me so much deeper on my path as a person that was healing, but also as a teacher, because after I got that message, I got more ritualistic, I got more devotional, and so much of my day became about letting myself open to the goodness that was around even on the hardest day. And at that time, I had this incredible collective of women I was working with called Karma Gang through my company, Karma Bliss. And I was also I was beginning to teach quite a bit with Chopra and taking on a role as an executive there, leading meditations. And God gave me this vision of how to teach tiny joys. And so I started groups. I started talking about it. I was posting about tiny joys all the time on my stories everywhere. In my posts, in my classes that I was teaching. And I even created a little mastery challenge about how to identify joy and make it real in your life. What I didn't know at the time as I was doing that, because I was really at first just trying to keep going, and I was noticing that this was radically keeping my heart open. But at the time, what I didn't realize was that also on my healing journey, I was building my tolerance for joy. I didn't even know at the time that I didn't know truly within my body what authentic joy felt like. It alerted me to the understanding that so much of the way I and we move through the world was really about more so a performative joy, right? It was a lot of the kind of extra likes, fire emojis, yes sis, yes queen, hey, I have a big announcement, look at me, look at what I'm doing. And I always felt the emptiness in that. And this was the first time I could really feel God moving in my body in a different way. So I became incredibly enraptured by this art of finding tiny joys. I would journal about it. I would journal about it every day. I would identify these moments for myself. And slowly over time, I began to create a system within my body, within my healing, that is still in full use today, which is even on the hardest day, I can find some pathway back to myself. It isn't always a wide road, right? It isn't always this kind of open, beautiful path. Sometimes it's really tiny and I'm tiptoeing through it. But I can always connect to the path by doing these small, beautiful heart openers that I call tiny joys. So I want to talk about how to do that today. I realized recently that as I've kind of moved forward on my path, and this is just an integrated part of who I am, and I'm also someone that doesn't hold so tightly to ideas and concepts and words that God sends me, because I know they're just here for everyone. So I'm not always looking to trademark or monetize or, create entire bodies around certain things that God reveals. But this one, it felt so important to run this back. I've done episodes probably about 4 years ago, that speak to this as well. So do some investigation if you feel called. But I thought that with the time that we're in right now, with the way so many of us are experiencing the world, this is the perfect moment in time to really lean back into some of these teachings about how to activate your own inner oven, how to light that fire for yourself that only you can see and feel, how to bring forward a sweet smile for yourself, even in some of the hardest moments. And so that's what I want to talk about today. Joy can sometimes feel incredibly elusive. It is something that happens as an embodied response to the way you're experiencing goodness in your life, the way you're experiencing presence, the way you're experiencing God. And so it is something I found out many years later is part of what feels like the challenge and also the excitement of this lifelong journey of growth and self-actualization and sometimes healing. We have to build the tolerance for joy. And sometimes we reject it because it feels so foreign, or we think the other shoe is going to drop. And the thing that I want to be really honest with you about in this episode is that it is true that the other shoe will drop, right? It is true. It is true that our life, just because we find moments of joy, it doesn't mean our life is going to be free of challenge and hardship. It seems to be that this is the way Earth is designed, that we're always oscillating between grief and joy. And I talk about this so much in my book, Living in Wisdom. My book, Living in Wisdom, is truly like this deep dance between how to navigate life's griefs and joys in any and all moments. And so when we sink into that truth, it actually, instead of filling us with more fear about opening our hearts wide enough to feel joy, it can actually deeply empower us because we now know what our vitality source is. We now can identify what our God connection can be. And it really opens up space inside of us to see and experience God's love, our own self-love, and the beauty of life, even in some of the most challenging days. So if joy has felt far from you, or if it's felt foreign, or if it's felt, to be quite honest, useless because life has just been so hard or so challenging or, so complex to navigate, the thing I want you to know is that this allows that to feel so much different. It allows you to survive it, to go through it, to transcend past it in such unique, beautiful ways that are true to the core of who and what you are. So yeah, the other shoe is going to drop sometimes. Good times aren't forever. and neither are the bad times. And I think that's the beauty of what it is when we connect to and accept the duality, the polarity of what it is to be in this human experience, to be alive. We are always dancing with grief and joy, but we really let ourselves down and we miss part of the point when we're only choosing to fight with grief and we don't choose to dance with joy when it's present. Will it leave? Most likely, because all moments do. We're just in the present moment. But even if you can connect to it for a second and let it in, it creates a light inside of you that you can reaccess to shine on the harder days. It creates a certain amount of self-reverence. It creates a certain amount of self-reverence and gratitude and connection to the greater compassion that's possible for us to have for ourselves and others. And it fuels your creativity. And creativity is most often the cure for challenge. Creativity is most often the cure, the medicine for karma. All of us are living very different lives, and some of them could potentially be more complex than others or seem to have more incidences of challenge than others. And I found that connecting to tiny joy is the cure for that. It connects us to our creativity. It connects us to our ability to co-create with what's in front of us, to change circumstances, or to at least feel a little bit more lovable and a little bit more lovable and grateful and graceful through all the other processes. So let's dive into the fibers and really kind of have a reopening of what it is to connect to tiny joys authentically and powerfully. So my hope for today is that this conversation feels like a gentle exhale, like we are diving into the art of what it is to make life a little bit more beautiful. These moments that I like to call tiny joys are those delightful, often fleeting moments that remind us of beauty in our everyday lives. Tiny joys are the little treasures that we often overlook, but they hold immense potential to shift our energy and to really help us truly feel alive inside of our own bodies. When we think about joy, many of us tend to envision these big, life-changing moments, right? Like a wedding, a promotion, a dream vacation, going viral, celebration, all the things that we look to in this moment of humanity. And while all those milestones are absolutely joyful and beautiful, what about those small, quiet joys that are really always within reach to us? The kind of joy that is tucked into the sunlight that dances on your skin, like that moment I shared of feeling that warm orange glow behind my eyelids, or the way that your favorite coffee in the morning warms your hands, and the nature of that also warms your soul a little bit, right? These are what I would refer to as tiny joys. When your favorite song happens to come on the radio at the exact perfect moment, or when you overhear someone else's conversation and somehow it's really relevant to who and what you are, and it takes you deeper, or it gives you access to a memory or a piece of nostalgia that feels good, that feels warm, that turns something on inside of you. It is that gateway to presence, that gateway to gratitude, that gateway to deep inner peace. But here is the thing for many of us. Identifying these moments doesn't necessarily come naturally. One, we move really fast, and just in the last 30 years, we have been taught as humans to move faster than any of our ancestors ever have in the history of humanity. we're moving faster as a species, mentally, emotionally, physically, than we ever have, ever in the entire history of humanity. We are thinking about more than we've ever thought about. We are juggling more than we have ever juggled as a species. And we're doing it while also being highly stimulated by everyone else's experience and everything that we see, touch, hear, feel. We have more choices than ever. There are more challenges globally that we can see all the time, more than ever, in addition to our day-to-day lived experiences. And I really call that forward because I want to honor the fact and be honest that it is a lot. It is a lot. And if you are ever feeling overwhelmed, I want you to really understand why. It's not necessarily because there is something deficient or broken about you and the way you experience your life. It is because we are all having experiences right now for the first time in humanity in a way that God didn't necessarily design our biology to uphold. So there's so much about our physicality and our mentality and our emotional experience that is catching up to how much life has changed being human in just the last few decades. I'm talking the last few decades, like not even the full length of my lifetime yet. Things have changed in a way they have never been, that we can't even fully conceive. And so it's important that we remember that. And if joy is a challenge for you, if happiness is a challenge for you, if feeling present in your life is a challenge for you, it is not because something is wrong with you. It's because this is really hard and it goes against a lot of cosmic law. It goes against a lot of natural law in the way that we've understood it. And we are, no matter what age you're at, whether you are a boomer right now, Gen Z, Gen X, what are the others? Millennials, that's me, or Generation Alpha, or the next generations to come, no matter where you are generationally on the journey of being alive right now, every single one of us, all of us, are experiencing things that humans have never experienced here on Earth being alive. And it's so important to know that. We are the pioneers of whatever this new phase of humanity is. I think that's going to become even more obvious and relevant to us as the decades go on. It might be the thing that once I am, deeply in my elderhood and in the sunset of my life is more widely understood and studied. And I really look forward to being at those ages where I can see how much we've come to understand about right now, because the truth is we don't really understand any of it, but we're all being profoundly changed because of it. So keep your eyes open and also keep investigating your own experience and keep removing how personal your experience may feel right now if you find yourself to be more self-critical or more in judgment about who you are and how you're designed and how you operate, because there is just so much that's unknown and there is so much that's being forced into us that we haven't fully given our consent to because we don't know what it can lead to yet. So I'll sit that there and I'll really kind of dive back into what I have found in this moment with the tools we have and the consciousness we have thus far to be a true medicine and cure for that. And that is the tiny joys. So identifying these moments don't always come naturally, especially if we're not used to experiencing joy in our body. If we have spent years, again, navigating stress, navigating trauma, or simply the busyness of being alive, joy might feel really elusive. It might feel too slow, too foreign. So today we're going to talk about, again, how we can begin to notice these tiny joys, how they might show up in our bodies. Sometimes it's a tightness in your jaw. Maybe if someone, even your own child, is getting too close to you with affection, you might notice your body tense up or your jaw tense up. It's not because anything is wrong with you, and it's not necessarily because it isn't real or true. It could simply be you're building your tolerance to have a feeling of deep intimacy that you haven't felt before. Even the platonic intimacy, right? Because intimacy, it's depth and it's closeness and it's something that gets into your interior. But that doesn't always mean that it has anything or needs to have anything to do with romance or with physicality. Sometimes It's really just what it is to be seen and revealed, or to have a reaction to something in the most vulnerable way, even the really good, exciting stuff. And especially the non-sexual stuff that we don't imagine can cause us to have some friction or some tenseness. So notice that whenever there is a barrier, which is really just a felt restriction, a felt wall, or something that is giving you a different signal that feels strange or different, notice if it is related to fear or a need to self-protect, or notice if it just happens to be a new feeling altogether, or a different kind of tingle inside of your heart, or a different way that you're experiencing how you have reactions to things. Sometimes we just need to let ourselves be in deeper practice with it, or sink into our bodies a little bit more to heal something that we didn't have access to before, or to feel something special we didn't have access to before. It matters so deeply for our well-being. There really is not true well-being, true happiness, true sense of peace without the ability to access joy. It is the opposite side of that coin of pain and challenge. And we're meant to know both. And some of us get deeper degrees to within which we study that, and sometimes we don't. But I think it is very, very important to build our tolerance for it. I remember a couple seasons ago, I had one of my dear friends and brothers, Resma Menakem, on the show, and he's written some beautiful New York Times bestselling books. My Grandmother's Hands is one of them. And he spoke quite a bit on the last podcast we had about something I was noticing on my journey earlier in my journey that I dealt with personally. And so I think so many of us do, but it is that you just have to get your reps in. Those were his words exactly. And I loved the way he taught that. You have to get your reps in when it comes to joy. You have to build the practice of it. And something that I came to know when tiny joys came to me, it is so powerful to become more with less. Become more with less. I find it to be so much more authentic and healing to find ways back to myself through more of the silent self-expressions, the silent joys, the small, tiny moments, than it is those big ones. Those moments are the ones that feel more fleeting and rare, and then you start measuring and comparing and competing. But the small ones, those are the moments that you give yourself that are just for you. It's not about broadcasting them. It's not about telling everyone about this feeling that you have. It's about building your confidence and your ability to feel joy in any moment you choose. I've had since, I discovered this practice some more, as all of us, challenging hard moments, on the floor in tear moments, in shock and horror of the world around me moments, right? And I found that even on those days, I'm able to find a smile for myself, even if it's for that long, right? A minute, a few seconds. I can find a smile for myself and my child, and I can do it with so much less than I used to think it would need to take to be quote unquote happy or joyful or enough. Tiny joys teach you enoughness. Tiny joys teach you that your life is enough, and it's valid, and it's honorable, and it's special. Another way I like to explore this concept of tiny joys is make love to your life. Find ways to make your life beautiful just for you. Sometimes you might want to share them. Sometimes it might hit the story, and sometimes it is just so you can smile. It is your way of flirting with yourself and flirting with your life. I love to, after I drop my son off at school, I have really created something special in our world and in our home. And I feel that I have brought beauty to life in our lives in a way that feels really special for us and really graceful for us and nurturing for us. And so I like to create little moments each day. So before I kind of start my meetings and get into the workflow of my day and of my life, I really look to come home after I take him to school. I usually will have about 30 minutes to myself where I can do something just on my own with no pressure. And so I'll usually light some incense to kind of give offering to my day, to my house. And then I'll go pick some flowers from my garden outside and I'll make a little mini flower arrangement. Or I'll just take a moment as I sip tea or coffee to notice the way the light comes into my kitchen, because it comes in like really beautifully in the morning. Sometimes there's just a little bit of it depending on what season we're in, but I always find this like sliver of sunlight that goes through one of the prisms I have hanging over my windows, and it casts this little rainbow scape on a wall somewhere. Sometimes there's like hundreds of these little rainbows swimming through my house. And on some days that the sun isn't so bright, there might be one or two, but I always find it. And I give myself a moment to just feel grateful and inspired to the way the sun creates in my life. Or it could be that I'm driving and I just notice the sun as I'm listening to my favorite yacht rock song, and just feel grateful and feel special. And for me, it feels like God's kiss. And on hard days, it's actually more than enough. On hard days, that's even all the strength and the opening I have for joy. A big joy wouldn't feel right on a day like that. I'd be steeped in two deeply conflicting emotions and experiences, and there'd be a lot of kind of emotional labor having to happen. But the tiny joys, those are the ones that don't really require as much of your participation. It just requires you to bear witness to it and accept that it's happening. And I think that is the deep power of tiny joy. It teaches you how to accept in a really beautiful way, how to create in a really beautiful way, and how to open for yourself in a really beautiful way. So ways to deepen that understanding of identifying tiny joys. The first step is creating moments of pause. In a world that is constantly pulling us in all those directions, the pausing is revolutionary. Truly, it can be as simple as stopping for a deep breath.
Yep.
And having an appreciation for breath moving in your body. If you've been working on your breath work, having an appreciation for how much air can come in and out that fast, that simple. It can be just finding moments for delight. Sometimes all I can do is say, surprise me, God. Delight me, Lord. And that's the prayer, nothing else. Surprise me, God. Delight me, Lord. I'm not trying to control it. I'm not creating a definition for what I deem as good enough or important enough to be considered as joy or to get me out of whatever's happening, right? I'm leaving that in God's hands, and I'm saying I am open to receiving it. I am open to seeing it. I am open to bearing witness to it, to being present with it. Whether it lasts for me an hour or it lasts for me a second, it's enough. It's enough. It's enough. It could be the way that sunlight filters through the trees, or the sound of a child laughing, or the feeling of soft fabric against your skin. Tiny joys are everywhere, but they do require our attention. So start by tuning into your senses. Maybe you catch a smell of someone cooking a delicious meal through their window while you're out on the walk. Take a deep breath. Take an extra second to take a deep breath. Perhaps you notice that, the sun is filtering through the trees again in just such a special way, and the wind is blowing. Instead of walking by it, stop and look. Take it in. What is more important than that? Truly. When I think back to some of the deepest memories in my life, some of those core memories that I can kind of time travel to, it's moments that I also remember what nature was doing as that moment was happening. So think about that as you craft the ways that you will make yourself spark and come to life. Think about that as you craft these ways that you're going to flirt with yourself in your everyday life. Romance yourself with these tiny joys. You don't have to have a partner. Things don't have to be going so well. You don't have to have the greatest friends yet. You don't have to have a perfect relationship with your children or with yourself or with your coworkers. right? Those are some of those bigger arcs that we're going to be striving towards our whole lives. But you can have these little moments where you get to become more with less. Now let's talk a little bit about how tiny joys actually feel inside of your body. So joy, even if it's smallest form, it's a somatic experience. It is something that we feel. But if you're not used to feeling joy, it might show up really subtly at first. And so that's why we say get your reps up, build your tolerance to feel it, to accept it. And also in building your tolerance in these tiny, smaller moments, you're giving yourself a chance to really feel the fullness of the big moments. You know, how many of us have had experiences where you might be quote unquote living your dream? I talk about this a lot in the book in Living in Wisdom. You might be, doing the thing and you're like, why do I still feel empty inside? That was one of the biggest wake up calls I had in my life and in my previous career, where I got the dream job, I did the thing, and it still felt empty and unsure inside of me. It still felt like that wasn't enough, because we're expecting that big thing is going to heal everything that ever happened to us. And it doesn't, and it won't. It's not supposed to. It is these small moments of deep presence, of deep witnessing, of flirting with your life, of creating and finding and seeking out on purpose the tiny joys. That's what actually does that. That's what creates the bigger space. And it all happens inside of your body. It is connecting the mental and the physical. It is bringing that elevator down from the mind into the heart so you can feel and experience and love your life, because you deserve to. You deserve to love your life. You deserve to love your life. You deserve to love your life. No matter what has happened, no matter what is happening, you deserve to love your life. And it doesn't have to be in these massive, grand ways that you're waiting for to happen until you get there. It can happen now. And then you just have even more room to grow and expand. Sometimes in our bodies, it feels like a little bit of a warmth in your chest, or even like a warmth, or sometimes even like a spasm in your gut, in your sacral, in your womb. It's a softening in your shoulders, a softening in your jaw. It is the feeling of a really satisfying exhale. It feels like an opening to something. And you don't know what it's opening to. You don't need to. Don't overthink it. Don't try to push the lesson forward so quickly, so fastly. It's that little spark. It is that gentle hum. That is what it is. And so if tuning into your body feels unfamiliar, or if it even feels uncomfortable, that is okay. That is why we start small. When you experience a moment of joy, no matter how tiny, place a hand on your heart, place a hand on your belly, breathe into it, let your body register it, let yourself have a little moan with it. That is somatic response as well. And it also does so much to heal the way you're able to express. So just like a or whoa, wow. Sometimes I like to just go, thank you, thank you, thank you. And really let the kind of hum happen, but through a professing of gratitude. Acknowledging gratitude in the moment expands its potency in your life. That's why you might notice, like if it's hard for you to share your joy, or to show your joy, or even to give compliments to others, because whatever host of restrictions might be happening inside, or previous experiences with authority figures in childhood, you'll notice that you feel guilty about that if you don't express gratitude in real time, or you notice that you cut it off on purpose, and then you'll ruminate on it later, or sometimes try to find a way to make it good later, or theorize with yourself about it back and forth about why you did that, or why you didn't do that, or why you had a harsh response, or why you weren't more giving. It's because it's the natural flow of the universe forgive and receive, to be in harmony with the universe. We are all giving and receiving in real time with one another. So when we cut that off, when we keep it inside, when we don't want to give it or when we don't want to receive it, we're creating imbalance in our lives. We're creating a little bit more kind of energetic and spiritual sickness inside of us. We're creating another thing that is feeding into this narrative of experience that we've been having, which very often is that good things don't happen, or people don't see me, or people aren't grateful for me, or people don't do for me. A lot of times it's because we ourselves are cutting off that give and receive. And so opening to tiny joy helps that process spiritually as well. It advances our growth spiritually when we do that. And so let yourself have that moment. Even if you want to give it to the person when they aren't necessarily seeing you, but you are choosing to acknowledge it, right? I don't want to presume what the barriers for us all, especially are with certain people in our lives, but try to find room to even give yourself a somatic experience with gratitude at the end of every day for the smallest moment. It can look like, I'm grateful for that person that just shared a smile with me for no reason, or made eye contact with me for no reason because no one's looked in my eyes lately, or that person that gave me a longer hug, or whatever small act of kindness. I'm grateful for all the green lights I got today because I hate sitting in traffic, right? I'm grateful for the fact that my song came on in the car. But say it longer, say it slower, sway your body, close your eyes, take a deep breath. These are ways of training yourself to give and receive more tiny joy. It's so important. It's so important. It's so important. It creates that pathway to feel safe inside of yourself and to feel welcomed into your nervous system. Why does all of this matter? Why focus on tiny joys? Well, because they remind us of what it means to be human. They anchor us in the present moment, and they create ripples of gratitude that nourish our spirit. Tiny joys are acts of self-love. They are a balm for stress. They are a counterbalance to the heaviness that we all carry. And lately, it seems like we may carry certain pockets of heaviness every day. Think about that. Counterbalance that. Bring harmony to that. When we consciously choose to notice these moments, we're rewriting the narrative that says that joy is something that we have to earn. Joy is our birthright, and these tiny sensory experiences are available to us in every single day. And I want to take it farther than saying joy is our birthright, because that is an idea that we are guaranteed it or that it's owed to us. It's not so much that joy is our birthright, it's that joy is God's intended path for us. And we may have to do some work to get there. It may not be this right that is automatically given to us, as is the case with so many other quote unquote rights that we fight for as humans on this earth. But it is God's intended path for us, and it is something that we should be walking towards and opening to at all times. And they're all available to us every single day if we choose it. And again, it doesn't mean that that tiny joy is going to radically shift what you're going through, what has happened to you, what could be currently happening to you. But it is a portal, it is a gateway, it is an opening to new chambers of who you are and how you interact with your world and with life. And it is buildable. You are able to travel and transcend with it. It is a key to opening more in your life, to better in your life and in your body. So a little soul work that I'd like to share for the end of this episode is I want you to really get a journal out, and I want you to spend some time just lightly thinking over first and examining what would you consider to be some tiny joys in this moment or in your recent past. So think about specifically today or this week we just had or something recent where Something just gave you a little smile, even if you didn't express it outwardly, inside. Something that gave you a little spark, a little, oh, anything. Maybe you got a little more sleep. Maybe you did have a day of a little better traffic. Maybe the sun hit you in a way that felt beautiful. When I first started connecting to tiny joys, all I could do was connect to the sun. It felt like there was nothing going right. I was grieving the passing of someone I love. I was grieving another passing that had happened not too far removed. I was grieving myself. I was grieving the world. I was grieving a relationship. There was just so much grief, as is the case a lot on earth. But the sun, every day I took a couple extra seconds to feel sunshine on my face. That was my first gateway. And then that opened to more things. I was able to have more Epicurean experiences. I slowed down with my coffee. I slowed down with a bite and let myself really receive the pleasure that was possible from it in that moment. So I would love for you to think about it in those ways. Again, sometimes it's big, like human connection, a smile, an opportunity. But find the smaller things. Slow down and smell that flower. I used to keep my face buried in a rose on my darkest days outside, or my feet buried in some soil. A warm bath, whatever, a favorite song, whatever it is for you. Write down things that you noticed recently in your life that you would say, I think that fits in that category. Think about it. Then what I want you to do is every moment after that, every day, find a moment to slow down, even if it's just one, though I think you'll find many, where if you notice something feels good, decide to pause in that exact moment as it's feeling good and really experience it. Whether it's a second or 5 minutes or an hour, whatever. Slow down enough when it registers as something good that you might be pulling up a wall to or not fully experiencing, and take a breath. And then once the moment fades, take a breath again and let it integrate in your body. At the end of the day, journal about it. Write it down, even as a bullet point. I like to write and experience my life in a highly romantic way, very poetic, very roomy, all day. So I'd be like, oh my God, the smell was so evocative. That's me. You find what's you. It could be very, very direct and just bullet point, this happened. Or it could be a haiku. Whatever is right for you, you'll know. And it's enough and it's perfect. Recapitulate it. Savor it before you go to sleep at night. Think about it and take a breath. That is how you will begin to train your body to give and receive these tiny joys. You deserve tiny joy in your life. It is the gateway to so much more, and it is available every day. It is available in many moments sprinkled throughout the day. Tiny joys. Surprise me, God. Delight me, Lord. My life is enough. Consider seeking and saying those things to yourself every day. Let me know how this episode lands. If you're connecting to Tiny Joys, I would love to hear and see about it on Instagram, on email, on DM, on any of the ways that you'd like to connect and share in a review, in a written review for this podcast, whatever feels best for you. But how are you practicing it? How are you feeling it? How are you embodying it? Again, my new book, Living in Wisdom, a lot of that is in this book and so much more. It's available for pre-order now. I have to admit, I feel so strange selling myself to you with this book, but it's my life's work. And honestly, I'm so deeply proud of it. So I'll be talking about it for a while. Pre-order, Living in Wisdom. Thank you for joining me this episode. Namaste.